Everyone loves a refurb, so let's have a look at some of these Glovebox torches. One of the cool things about BMWs is you used to get a little torch in the glove box. Usually it tended to be the case by the time you bought the car it was long since gone. If you were extremely lucky and you found that you still had the torch in the glove box, you'd probably find that it doesn't work either. So none of these work. That one switch feels a bit horrible. This one, this is the older E30 style. This is going to go into a E30 M3 undergoing a restoration. That switch, he really doesn't want to move. This one looks the cleanest of the bunch, and not great on that. It doesn't want to go into its detail. It'll go forward and kind of pop back a bit. So we're going to open them up, we're going to give a bit of a clean up and then tidy them up. We're going to have, I think, new batteries in them. I think the batteries are going to be long since dead. We'll start with our oldest one. Now I can see that looks a little bit green in there, and look at the state of those contacts. So they are pretty bad. I've had a look over, I don't see any screws on this. Oh, he does pop out. Right, okay. Oh, we can actually. Right, it makes, because obviously it is all sealed up. That's the way you would get in to change the bulb, because the rest of it does look to be glued together. So we are just going to have to force our way in. Oh, that's good. Right, yes, we have a gap and we have clicking. Hopefully that's good clicking. We are getting both sides as well. Oh, this is coming up pretty well. Let's try and pull, and wow, right, I did not expect that at all. I would have thought we would have had NiCads in there. So and that resistor, I guess that's kind of normal. There's a big massive long leg sticking out the other side. So yeah, we've got in. Wow, and look at all that blue. That ain't right, look at that. So we're in. Oh, it's all falling to bits now. I'm gonna have to watch the video to find out how to go back together, but nothing's broken. So let's strip this down a little bit more and we'll get a better look. And that explains the crunchy switch. So I was expecting this to be a regular switch, and when it felt a little bit gritty, that's kind of unusual for that. But I see what it does. He just slides forward, pushes him in to make contact. There's quite a bit of tension on that. Will these come out? I think they will. And he's out. And look at all those bluey green crystals. If you remember your chemistry, you might be able to guess that. I don't know what's that. Well, I'm going to say it's copper carbonate or something. So batteries, we do have some batteries. Oh, we've got more crunchy bits falling off. We're going to have to do a lot of cleaning up on this, and we'll need to find some new batteries for this as well. I want to get these batteries out, but hitting that with a soldering iron is doing nothing. I'm guessing that's going to be a steel wire, and that's spot welded onto there. But we've got two. We've got another tab that runs around there. We're going to have to try and break them off. Oh, that one coming off easy. At least a couple of the ones have gone. He's moving. He might be tearing. Oh, there we go. Right then, have I? Yep, all my fingers are there. So that bit is off. Yeah, that's steel wire. Let's see if we can get this tab off. So this one looks like is going to be trickier. Okay, we got him. So the edge there with the wire came up first, and then what I had to do was just sort of rock this forward and back to break that weld. And there's whatever kind of battery this thing is. So let's have a look in our newer one and see if they've changed anything. So with the generation 2 one, our black one, same thing again. Yep, he comes out. The bulb, if my fingers weren't covered in flux, I should be able to turn that and get him out. Okay, now let's try again. Same sort of thing. This one certainly looks more like he's welded together. I think what I'm going to have to do is start running a knife up and down those edges to start easing into it. So I'm going to start over this side, and we are getting a little bit of a click. So let's see now if we can carry on with that and keep that split going. We haven't got much of a chance of getting in without getting past this glue. Oh, we've lost our advantage. Whoa, steady on. Hopefully that was a good crack. Oh no, that was a bad crack. We've got a split. Okay. Good job this wasn't the rarer one. But yeah, we've got a crack just there. Looking better. And how we're doing on that crack? Not bad, not bad at all. Right, this one, how does he come apart? He's kind of, both halves are stuck together. And he's out. Okay, now we've got some part numbers on a battery, so that's good. There's the remains of our bulb. We'll need to sort that out. I've got all our other ones over there because I don't want to get these things mixed up. This one, does this have a resistor? Oh, this one's got electronics in it. We have some resistors. That looks like maybe a little transistor in there. So this one certainly is a bit smart, and we've got some electronics there we might need to be repairing. Let's try and separate the battery off this one. That is quite some springy steel to jack it up. Okay, that's one gone. In fact, that wire's come off. Right, so that is done. I don't know if we're going to need that tab. Now that he's kind of lifted up, this thing is rocking, and there we go. It'll just metal fatigue itself off. So there is our battery, and at least now we have a part number as we know what we can get. And this is the third and final one, so we'll try and do this one with a bit less damage and a fingernail. Okay. Well, we'll leave that bulb in there for now. And we cracked it on this, well, say we, I did. I cracked it on that side, so I'm going to start off over here on this side. Oh, he's straight in there. Up. Oh, that's more like it. Right. Our other seam hasn't started to go. Oh, there we go. Right, they get straight in. So a little bit of a reflector, and then another different design. So yeah, that gadget would have been a transistor because there's obviously a bigger one. And more corroded batteries. You see how the bulb, again, a lot of corrosion, around there, so that I don't know if that will. Oh, he's actually coming out not too bad. Never throw out an old toothbrush, they come in handy for so much. So we are now going to throw this stuff into our mini jacuzzi, and we are going to give this a bit of a clean up, and we'll get this plastic looking as good as we can. We'll also do it on the rest of our electronics. I am going to throw the electronics in here. It's one of those things, if they're not powered up and it's not something sensitive to moisture, for example, you wouldn't want to do it for a temperature or pressure sensors with complex stuff on the inside. You can get stuff, you can quite often just use water for cleaning electronics. You just got to make sure everything is bone dry afterwards, and then you'll be safe to work on it. So let's get these cleaned up. Plastics are cleaned up now, so we're going to have a look at some of this metal work. This was one of them. This is pretty much mint condition. That's fine. So I'm not going to do anything with that. Bit of corrosion here on this one. I'll give that one a bit of a clean up. And then we got this. So that's going to be the trickiest one. But we'll look at the state of that. We will give that a bit of a clean up. And then we've also got these 3 contacts there for the bulb holders. There is slight differences in these. So these are the 2 ones from the black torches, and again they're looking a little bit cloudy. This is the old E30 style one, and he's not looking too bad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give that a shot with Brasso and this little polishing mop I've got on my Dremel. So let's get that fired up and let's see if I can launch these across the garage. So I don't need to get too much. I'll just soak a little bit into this. I think we've got our speed down fairly low. I'll spray it all over the camera now. And let's see. Oh yeah. Well, you're not going to mistake them for new ones, but at least they're clean. So now we've got to get some batteries. So I'm going to have to find out what we can get. Hopefully we can still get these things. There's our part number. I'll stick that up on the screen because I can't quite read it, but it's a Varta something or another. It's written just there. Hopefully we can still get some of these, and we'll order some of these. So it looks like we'll have 3 sets of these, and then we'll get them stuck into our torches and all put back together. New bulb, new battery, and it's time to start putting them back together again. So I'm starting off on the oldest and simplest one first off. Hopefully I can remember how this thing goes back together again, because for some reason it's about 2 months further in the future and I can barely remember how these things go back together again. The other 2 ones, the black ones, that's going to be a bit of fun, but I'm going to start off with the simplest one and we're going to get that all working. And our first thing we're going to have to do is sort out what we're going to do with this battery, as that's a bit of a different style to the original one. Right, now we are cooking with gas. I have formulated a plan. So once I cut those batteries out of the green heat shrink, they do drop into 2 separate batteries. I've pulled off that tab, which was the 2-leg tab that was sitting on the bottom of this one. And then this one is going to go in just here, and you can see that copper tab at the bottom, see how it's very low down? He will contact just that lower battery, and he will, there he is, he's making a contact on the side, and then our other battery will go on top. And what I've done is I folded that leg over, and I'm going to now try and get a bit of solder to see if I can solder these two things together. So that is, I think that's going to be stainless steel or spring steel along those lines, so it might be a little bit tricky. Obviously they've got a bit of solder on there on the wire, but I want to get those connected up. This will then sit down in there and be the base of the bulb, and then this section goes along that tab facing up. He sits in there, and he will then, when you flick that switch, pushes that lever over and our light comes on. Or at least that's the plan. Well, that was a plan. I guess we've got another plan. So I've just realized, with our first battery sitting in there, our second one comes up to about the level of that lip, and there's nothing to stop him sliding around, and there isn't in this side. So there isn't another kind of a battery holder on that side. So what I'm going to need to do is slip him back into this plastic, and that will kind of at least clamp them and hold them together. But obviously I need a little bit of this off as well, so that mate goes through and sort of contacts in to that copper pad. So now if I get these in, that's him. This isn't able to slide around because you see how the height of him, he's going to need something to stop him. You know, we just wiggle this thing around. You don't want that battery sliding off and shorting out everything. So that is going to do that side, and then we'll still need to again get that done over here. One-handed. Can I get it in? Oh well, look at that. Job done. I was made for this job. And pretty quickly we've hit a problem. So on our little leg that's on the battery, solder, no problem, it gets onto that just fine. But onto the metal tab that is part of the original mechanism, that solder isn't sticking at all. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try a bit of soldering acid, as that hopefully, I mean that's made for the job, hopefully that will cut through the top layer of that stainless steel, get down to the metal, and all we need to do is just get a little bit of that solder to stick first, and then that's it, and then it's just a case of solder to solder. Well, what do you know, it worked like a charm. So with a little dab of that soldering acid on, it managed to get the solder to stick onto that tab. So then I suppose there's a little bit of fettling on some of those joints and contacts so they make a good contact when I flip that switch. But now we've got him working. So final bits now, I suppose what I'll do is I'll give that lens a bit of a polish and a clean up, and then we can stick this one back together again, and that's about it. In fact, I suppose I'm going to stick a little bit of grease on the back of that switch as well, make sure it's nice and free moving, and then we are done. So that is our first one down, and there we go, he's looking pretty good, and a nice positive click on that as well. So by an amazing bit of luck, I had one of these little sort of mini grinding stone gadgets. It was there with my Dremel, and that worked up fantastically at cleaning up those pin contacts. So they are brass inside of there. So I'm going to put a little bit of deoxit on there, and then this one is done, all apart from some glue. So I'm going to need to have a bit of glue now to glue that back together again, but I'll sort that out later once we get the other one. So that is our first one done. I'm getting fingerprints all over this, but there we go, and there it is, all done with the old-fashioned filament bulb as it was always kind of intended to be. So that's one done. Now we're going to move on to the two other ones, and they look like they're going to be a little bit more tricky. So these are the slightly two newer generation ones with the black plastic, and they have male pins rather than female pins, so you can't use an old one in a new one. They are slightly different, And this is the bit that I'm now more interested in, is we have these electronics hanging around on there. So from what I can tell, both of these appear to be the same, despite the fact they're on the opposite end of the board. These ones on the opposite side of the pins, these are on the same side. But we have a resistor, we have a transistor, we have another 2 resistors down there. That appears to be a coil or an inductor, which I think is the same as that little grey one. And this one has a diode. That's the big transistor in this one. The transistor in this one is that tiny little 3-pin thing just there. That, I think, is going to be a diode that is taking the place of that one. I haven't seen a diode like that. It almost looks like it's kind of hand painted, but I'm thinking that's going to be a diode because it does the same sort of thing. He goes off to one of these pins. This one here, the diode actually is the pin. So we're going to have a look at that now and see what it is. In fact, I suppose if we're going in terms of stripe, that one is, the stripe is on the far side. That one is, the stripe is on almost the output of that one. But I'll have a bit of a check over those with a multimeter. The main thing, I suppose, is that transistor to check out. So I have tested them all now and everything seems to be working fine. The resistors are resisting, the diode's doing its one-way thing, and our transistor they're generally doing what they should do. So there's 2 of those. They are NPNs, which is fairly normal. I have just sort of gone over and put a bit more solder on these, as previously with the corroded solder I wasn't getting anything and I thought that one there was gone. But once I dabbed some solder on and made sure we're actually touching the metal, that one's all working out fine. This one here, obviously a little bit easier with his big legs. So both of those are ready to go. Oh yeah, including that diode. So that little thing there with a paint mark on, it is some sort of a weird SMD, almost like hand-painted diode. I haven't seen one of those before. Maybe somebody else has. But that is it all done. So now we've got to get these together and get the batteries in. See if we can figure out some kind of solution for the batteries on these things. So I have a general layout there. We've got to find a way of getting this battery in. So it is positive at the bottom, and luckily there's quite a big wide spring tab, so that might in fact even contact that, or I might just need to shave a little bit of that heat shrink off so he'll get in. I will again need to pull off this double leg tab thing, get rid of him, and then again this other leg swings over, hits the top, but that also needs to go over onto this bit. That square hole there is where the bottom of the bulb is going to sit. So that's going to go in there somewhere and make the contact through to the bottom of the bulb. We'll also have the little brass gadget, one of these fellas. He's going to be in there to make that contact through to the bulb between those 2 contacts. Like that contact needs a bit of cleaning still, but I'm going to have to try and figure out a way now of getting that linked up. Well, we're getting there, but I have come across an issue, and amazingly one-handed, talk about dexterous, that is the LED bulbs we're planning, but it's the polarity is wrong. So that is positive in at the bottom and negative on the outer case, but positive on this one is there, and that touches over onto our bulb holder, this gadget, and he's on there. So those LEDs have to have a polarity. They're the wrong polarity, so we're going to have to use our old filament bulbs and give them a clean up. But that's how I've got the battery set up. So I have cut it out the plastic. I've decided on this one, because of the height of that the black plastics around, we don't need the plastic at all to hold them in. But what I do need to do now is get this attached, so that is him onto this wire and also onto that tab. So we need 3 things connected, and that wants to keep that sitting just in that spot. That square is where the base of the bulb would be. Not this one, because he's entirely wrong. On this one, for example, and boy does he need a bit of cleaning up. So he's going to be sitting in there with the base touching into that side. And then obviously we would have had our little metal gadget there on the top, and he would then make the final contact between our spring contact there, which gets pushed over sideways by the switch. So next thing I'm going to need to do, look at getting those soldered. So that's my first stage. I folded that leg back, and he is then sort of sandwiching our stainless contact. Now I know the solder will stick onto the leg that's on the battery, but it won't stick very well to our stainless bulb contact. So that's going to be soldering acid again. So our acid has done the trick, and we have our solder blob on the top of our stainless tab that's going to be the battery one, and going onto our folded over tab that's already spot welded onto that battery. So that is a solid connection onto there. I do need to get this leg connected into there as well, but now they've got a blob of solder. That's going to be pretty easy. I did have a look into the acid to find out what it is, and in fact it is a mix of mostly phosphoric acid and a bit of oxalic acid. Now if you know your acids, phosphoric acid is one you will find in Coca-Cola. It's the one that has the bit of the myths about putting stuff into Coca-Cola and dissolving. Turns out that happens with pretty much any carbonated drink from carbonic acid. But it also has oxalic acid, which comes out to plants, and that's known as a bit of a rust remover. But anyway, chemistry aside, now we've got to do is connect on that final little wire standing up just there into the mix, and then put the rest of this stuff together. I've got that wire on. That wire then, that's going to just be part of the charging side. And there is our bulb working on the old-fashioned one. We've got to get that switch in now. Now, if you're putting these switches in, you'll see there's a little bit more of a ramp on one side and a little bit easier on the other. You want to have that ramp on the top, as that final little kick there is what latches it on when you push it forwards. It'll push forward and then catch. So I'm going to put a little bit of this silicone grease on there to keep it all running nice and smooth, and then we're going to clip this thing together. There is going to be better greases than that. I think if you find some of that white lithium grease, that's normally a bit better for plastics, but all I had around was this stuff, an axle grease, and I don't think I want to use the axle grease. And that's another one done, and we've just got one left to do. Now that's unfortunately, I do need to get that thing glued together, as our lens keeps popping out the front. But once it's going to be glued and is not widening out like that, hopefully this thing shouldn't fall apart like a clown car. So we only got one more left to do, and then I promise you can all go home. So let's crack on with the last one. So on this last one, we need to save that metal tab. He's still connected to that old battery, so I'm going to rip him off first and then get him transferred over onto this one, and then acid soldered back on. Yeah, he kind of fell down the stairs there. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to straighten it out with a set of pliers, and we're going to get it set up here for the soldering. So I will show you now a quick go with our soldering acid. So there is our soldering acid, and I'll just get a little bit dropped onto there and make sure he covers that metal underneath. The top tab on the battery, not really an issue. It's the one underneath that is the one that I tend to struggle with. So if I get that lead past, and now this is one of the things you've got to go in fairly quick, because it starts to boil off as soon as it touches that iron. But if we're in there, we can see some of it there starting to stick on there. It's very easy here on that tab, but here, all around here, we can see that solder has started to grab. And finally we've got to get that little diode leg down into the mix as well. So heat him up, get a bit of solder, and then that should be him connected in. And we are done. So there we go, 3 torches, refurbed, new batteries, new bulbs. Actually, they haven't got new bulbs. One had a new bulb, our white one in the back. Our other 2, again, yeah, I was planning to put the those LED bulbs in, but yeah, I suppose you could always stick some new bulbs in. It's not a hard job to swap the bulbs anyway, as you just pull off that front lens and swap the bulbs afterwards. But remember, if you are getting an LED bulb, it has to be one where it is negative on the bottom and positive on the outer screw thread, which is probably pretty rare. But that's it. We are all done. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.